I guess I wasn't even live there. So let's try this again.
You're having issues.
I guess so. Okay. Welcome to episode 82 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. Tonight is October 7th, 2024. And I wanted to start out, I guess, with somewhat of an apology from anybody who might have been wanting to tune into the rebroadcast last week. And what I typically do is I will turn on the mid-roll ads, but it doesn't allow you to actually edit beyond that until it finishes processing or whatnot. And so I wound up going all the way through the entire day almost, and YouTube puts these ads on about every 5 minutes. And I understand for anybody that's wanting to listen to the rebroadcast, that would be completely annoying. And I usually don't forget to do that, but I did that last week, and I just wanted to kind of put out a little apology and let you know that if in fact that happens ever again, you can go and listen to the rebroadcast, the audio version, on Spotify. There are no ads over there. And so that's an option as well, or you can come back the following day and check it out as well. But I had a little oversight here this last week, so I just wanted to start out with an apology. Good evening, Tim Riley and Bill Warner. How are you guys doing this evening?
Yes, good evening to both of you.
Yeah, tonight I thought we would get talking about what we've been doing here on the homestead, and let you know how we've been moving forward with our progress and some of the things that we've been doing here. And it might be a reminder to some of you to maybe think about doing some of these things as well. Also, we'll cover the weekly poll. I had a number of people that responded to that, and I wanted to go over that this evening. I've got a quote for liberal or conservative, as well as I'm going to do a Did You Know? And I thought I would do a clip of the week, but I actually don't have a clip of the week. So I think I'll just do something at the end that it's going to tie into what I'm going to kind of open the show up with, in essence. But, our thoughts are definitely with the folks that are on the other side of the country going through what they've been going through for the past 10 days-ish now. A lot of people have lost their lives. A lot of people have lost all of their possessions, and they're really struggling to try to find some answers. And unfortunately, they're getting firsthand to see how inept the federal government can be in response to these types of incidents. And I wanted to lend some perspective toward that tonight. And it's based on my experience in emergency incident management of over 30 years with an agency that I believe is the best in the world at managing large-scale, rapidly expanding emergency incidents. And so I just wanted to, talk about that a little bit and give some perspective as to maybe some of the things that are happening and as to why. And I'm certainly not here to make any kind of an excuse for the failings of the federal government, because this is completely, in my opinion, unacceptable, the way that they've been treating the people over there. And, hopefully they're going to get their shit together with what's happening there now with a Category 5 storm that's approaching Florida, which by all indications is going to be, another large scale event. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that tonight, but it's interesting. I actually, before I went on, I wanted to know what ChatGPT had to say about what was the biggest news story in the United States today. And so I asked it that very question. And it's very telling when you have artificial intelligence that is trying to divert your attention from what's actually on people's minds, because I know a lot of people, regardless of where you're living, are thinking about the people that are over there dealing with just the horrific, destruction that they've been under. But when I asked it that question, what's the biggest news story in the United States today? It said, one of the biggest news stories in the United States today is a significant job growth reported in the latest economic data. The U.S. has added 254,000 new jobs, and the unemployment rate has dropped to 4.1%, indicating a strong labor market and economic resilience. Let me ask you, Rebecca, do you think that that's the most important thing out there right now, or what would you say about that?
I don't. I was really surprised when you read that to me. I was just mind blown that it was not the hurricane that is existing and the hurricanes that are coming in. I mean, to me, that's the most. Your citizens should be top of the list and not what your jobs are or sending money somewhere else, but it should be your own country and taking care of the people that are around and need the assistance, and should be, like I said, the top of the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's what most people are in alignment with. Most people that are clear thinking probably are thinking that as well. And, it's fine if you want to show economic numbers that are showing some form of improvement. But as we all know, a lot of those numbers are manipulated in a way so that it makes, the visual for the American people to think, oh, things are really rosy. I mean, obviously we have an election coming up. And so the Labor Department is going to have a vested interest being run by this administration to show the most robust numbers that they possibly can. But the reality is that most people are smarter than that. Most people realize when they go to the store or when they go to the gas pump, how much things are costing them, and their economic situation hasn't really improved as much as they would like you to believe. But I just really did think that was kind of a telling thing with regard to the priorities of what artificial intelligence at least thinks is the top news story of the day in the United States.
I find that to be very heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the whole situation over there is absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah, Bill Warner says, I also want to apologize for giving misinformation about the dock workers strike. I was under the impression that it was the same union on both coasts, and they are not. No, it was just the ones like from Texas all the way up to Maine. And then apparently the dock workers on this side of the country have already negotiated some form of a contract that they're completely happy with or whatnot. I did want to talk about that just briefly, I suppose. And we kind of dodged a bullet there, guys. We really did dodge a bullet, I think, in a sense. But that should be such a vivid reminder to everyone that how fragile we are all and how tied we are to the system. Because when those things shut down, like the ports or the truckers or some kind of thing that is disrupted, then you really get to see, our vulnerabilities. And we started to see a little bit of what we were witnessing in 2020. It's kind of interesting because when that thing in 2020 happened, right, the whole COVID scare and everybody shutting down supply chains, this and that, or whatever, we were actually out having breakfast at a restaurant locally. And the waitress was jawing with us. And she's like, yeah, we were just kind of like, yeah, I can't believe this. This is crazy. But, people running around with fucking masks on. And it's just this whole thing, we were still kind of in disbelief. This was early in 2020, probably like, I don't know, April, maybe like right about the shutdown times. Maybe it was March. I think it might've been around March. So it was really early. And she's like, yeah, they're like taking toilet paper off the shelves. And we were just kind of like laughing about it. Like, oh, that's fucking stupid. We were just in the store. There's, 2 days later, we go to the store and there's fucking nothing.
Nothing.
No toilet paper. Like the meat counter is cleaned out. It was just like, wow, this is a like weird deal, man. I've never seen this.
Same with the water.
Yeah, everything was just like people were panic buying. And, we kind of got caught with our pants down because whoever thought you'd need to have a bunch of toilet paper, right? No pun intended there. That was not intended in any respect. But we've learned our lesson from there. Because when this time rolled around, I started thinking, man, we need to get some more toilet paper because I'm seeing on TikTok where there's people like hoarding paper towels and toilet paper. And Rebecca says, no, I got you. It's good.
No, I went and bought toilet paper because you said we needed toilet paper.
Well, yeah, we always need it, but I didn't know you had shit stashed everywhere around
But you asked me to go get it again. And I said, I don't know where you want me to put it. We've got toilet paper in here. We've got toilet paper over there. We've got toilet paper underneath the bathroom sink. Mm-hmm. We've got toilet paper out in the RV.
Yeah. So, we learned our lesson last time. And all I'm bringing this up to say is that I hope people are heeding the dress rehearsal that we just kind of got to witness, because they have settled their contract in a short-term manner. They settle on like 62%. They were asking for 70. The owners were willing to give them 50, and then they met somewhere in the middle around 62% after about 48 hours worth of strike. And fortunately, because there are people who are still trying to get supplies over on the East Coast for all of those rescue efforts, this is just really bad timing in a lot of respects. I don't think it's ever good timing, and it's probably worse now, but this is going to be revisited. They will have another chance to visit the bargaining table after January 15th, because there's still some things that are, need to be negotiated, and we'll just see how things go. But it doesn't have to be a monetary issue that shuts these ports down. It could be a cyber thing. It could be a lot of different things, guys. And so I hope that people are getting themselves a little bit better prepared every day and really taking heed to these little messages that are being sent out, because there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, a lot of instability. And, I feel good where we are personally, and I hope everybody else is feeling pretty good where you are personally, but, we don't know what's coming. And so I'm just trying to, kind of sound that alarm a little bit, like, hey, we had a close call there with the port thing. So I'm glad that's somewhat resolved. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's up, Hogs 14?
And it's always good to go through and check what it is that you have too, because you may think that you have stuff and you were using, maybe you used more of the rice or whatever it is that you thought, and mm-hmm. you don't really have as much stored as you think. So it's really good to go back and check through and mm-hmm. make sure that you have what you think you have.
Yeah. Pantry management is just an ongoing process. It's just like everything on your property. It just requires that constant visualization and constant checking in to make sure that you have things, or maybe you've got a little too much of things and you need to try to downscale that. With regard to the food storage, I mean, you can have, the stuff that you put into Mylar, it winds up losing its seal, and you think you've got, 20 pounds of rice in there, but when you open it up and you realize that it's no good anymore. I don't know. It's just something that needs to be looked at frequently, and kind of come up with a plan on how to do that. Yeah. What's up, Hogs? Says you just got back from Self-Reliance Festival, and you might fall asleep, but I'm here. Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Yeah. I hope it was a good festival. They always put on a good, gathering out there, and, a lot of community minded people that are trying to network and to learn some things and to meet some people. And so it's always, kind of good to get out to these festivals and whatnot. But yeah, hope that went off successful. And no, I could not actually imagine. I could imagine it, but what would actually happen if that happened? It's going to be bad, right? There's going to be mass panic, and I don't know. So let's see. Yeah, we had a pretty productive week around here, but let me ask you first, Rebecca, how are you doing this evening? Haven't heard from you much.
Well, you did. I was talking about the toilet paper. Actually, I am good. We had a fun weekend. We got to take our grandson to the monster trucks, and boy, that was exciting. He was thrilled. However, we did have an incident prior to going to the monster trucks. He came storming in the house crying. His steering wheel fell off his John Deere truck or John Deere tractor.
Mhm.
And that was devastating.
Mhm.
But luckily we got that fixed, and then it followed up with the monster trucks and was a great evening.
Yeah, grandma to the rescue.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I mentioned, downsizing here a second ago. I was talking about, going through and looking at your preps, and sometimes you're adding, and being somebody who is prepper minded, like myself. I'm sure many of you are preppers, and sometimes what comes along with that is a little bit of hoarding, and you have to make a determination, what stuff you actually need versus stuff that you actually just want. And I'm kind of that way myself. And so I've been doing a little bit of spring cleaning, I suppose, in autumn, and was able to get that done this week. I won't say that I got rid of anything, but I definitely organized some things. But I really do need to actually get rid of some things because, having interests, no matter what they are, whether it's your homesteading interests or, your entertainment or whatever, right? Your recreation, you acquire things. And I've got a lot of things I actually need to just figure out what I'm going to do with. I don't really think I need 5 pairs of skis, but I got 5 pairs of skis. I don't need like 2 road bikes and 1 mountain bike. I probably could get by with, maybe 1 less road bike.
Let's address that bike.
Okay.
So you bought that bike
Mm-hmm.
and you rode it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you decided you needed a different one.
Mm-hmm.
And our agreement was, okay, you can get another one if you sell the first one. We still have the first one.
Well, I'm willing to sell it. I'm just, we just need to put it up on Craigslist. But
so how many years now? You were like, no, I'm going to make it a stationary bike.
Well,
Never became a stationary bike.
I know. I'm willing to sell it. Just we'll put it up on Craigslist and we'll get it out of here. But it's just one of those realizations that, when you move into a place. I know when we first moved here, it was like we're looking around at all these cabinets and we're thinking, man, we're not going to fill this. We went from a house that was like 1,400 or 1,600 square feet to, this one's over 3,000 square feet with 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, fucking huge, open air, a lot of cabinet space. And we just thought we'd never fill it.
Well, mind you, we had 4 children in the home at that time. So
right. It wasn't like it was just us like it is now, but nonetheless, it didn't take long. And pretty soon there's shit in all these cabinets. Right. And so over the course of about 20 years, you accumulate things. And so I'm actually constantly always looking at all of this stuff I have, and some of it I'll need, some of it I'll use, and some of it but there's stuff that you just got to sometimes let go of it. And so, I don't know.
This is the time of year.
Yeah. Another thing that wound up doing this week, and I wanted to mention this because it's important to, if you are going to be bringing soil onto your property from an outside source, make sure that it's from somebody that, where the soil is being generated. And I get my soil from a place that, makes organic compost, and it's, I know what the source is, where they're getting it, and all of that. And so I'm not going to be bringing in some bad pathogens or some toxins or something like, root knot nematodes, which is something that can happen if you're not, if you're trying to save a buck. In other words, if you go and you buy soil from like a landscaping place, they don't really care. They're going to just sell that to a bunch of dudes that are putting in a lawn or whatnot. And they don't really care what the source is. It's just soil to them. So go to a place that's reputable, that can provide you soil that is good if you're going to, in fact, bring it in. Sometimes they'll do, I've seen compost being made at waste management places, right at the dump. And, they bring in all the lawn clippings and all of this other stuff, but there's also a bunch of other bullshit in there too that you don't know what it is. And so it's just important to maybe, source it from a good reputable location or a nursery that, you're not going to be doing more harm than good by saving a few bucks is what I'm saying. And I'm doing that. I brought some soil in, 2.5 yards, I think we brought in is all. And it's to address my beds, to top dress my beds this year. I have been doing that in years past with the soil that I produce here. And I could have done that again this year, but I wanted to bring in some different organic material. And so I brought that into not only my raised beds, but I brought it into the space where I'm going to be planting garlic as well as my onions. And I got that planted this week. So if you are someone who is a garlic planter, think about what's going to be best for your zone. I am in zone 9A. It may be different if you're in zone 6 or you're in zone someplace where you get the hard frost and the freeze and all of that. You might have a different window when you're going to be putting that in. But right about now is probably a good time to start at least thinking about it and doing your own research about when you're going to put your garlic in, because garlic is such a great crop because it's much like potatoes. Once you have your seed, you don't have to keep buying it. You can just keep year after year being self-reliant with regard to the seed that you actually are producing on your own property. And so I just put in 200 cloves, 200 seed this week. And it will be due sometime around June 1st to June 15th. It's about an 8 to 8.5 month crop here on my property. Sometimes it'll stretch to, a 9-month crop, depending on the garlic itself and, when you've planted it and all of those type of parameters. But generally speaking, for me, I plant first week of October and then I harvest June to June 15th. And so again, just think about that. I will be putting out a video this upcoming week. I've shot some content for it. I haven't edited it yet, but that'll be probably forthcoming this week. So if you're interested in seeing how I do it here and getting to check that out, certainly be looking for that.
So when I was putting the chickens up, or actually going out and collecting their eggs, I did want to tell you that out in your orchard, there was something that was hopping. It hopped from the fence line to the first row. I don't know what it was. It was not a rabbit.
How big was it?
It was gopher size.
Probably a kangaroo rat.
So just to let you know, you got that. And not to make Eric look bad about the bike, we do have a pink bike that our daughter, when she was 4, we bought for her, and she now is 38. So there are things we do hold on to.
Yeah, but all of our grandkids have ridden that bike, so it's not like it doesn't get used. All of the kids have been on that bike, which is kind of cool. It becomes kind of almost like an heirloom at a certain stage when you can have something like that, where you've got pictures of your daughter that's 38 when she was tiny, and that was how she learned how to ride. My son learned how to ride that bike when I grabbed him by the back of his neck and I shoved him down the driveway.
I'm right here with you, boy.
Yep. And he learned how to ride right on that bike. So
as he let go of the neck.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. Let me get caught up on some questions. Yeah, Hogg says that SRF was hot. First one I've been to and learned a lot. Nicole is changing it up on the next one and will be coming out with info in the next few weeks. Yeah, cool, man. You have to keep those things moving, right? You have to keep bringing in new talent. You have to keep bringing in new ideas. You have to keep bringing in, something to change it up. And so I'm glad to see that she's doing that because, you have to get better at what you're doing. She's been doing that for a number of years now. And I know that each time she learns a lot on how to make it more efficient, making it better. And it's just going to, over time, those type of events will flourish, if they put the effort in. It sounds like she's committed to doing that. So that's great. Tim Riley says, man, Bill, he must have Popeye-sized forearms to be able to hand dog a 25-foot well. Oh, hand dig a 25-foot well. The clay in the chert I have here in Middle Tennessee might as well be concrete. Wow. Yeah, I missed that earlier question from Bill Warner here. Yeah, Bill says, we aren't where we need or want to be yet. I need to put more effort into redundancy in simple things like power and water. Here in Tennessee, we can hand drill a well to approximately 25 feet. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But to the point that you made earlier about redundancy, it's very important. And that's something that I've worked on in the last couple of years, is to continue and get that, water storage and that redundancy of fresh water, because water is life for everything, your animals. And that's the essential prep right there, is water. And then it's obviously food. And then, however you want to, develop a hierarchy from that point forward, depending on what your needs are, medically or otherwise. But yeah, that water is super important. So that's really awesome. I wish we could dig a well by hand here. I don't think that's happening either.
I don't think that's happening.
Mm-mm. Let's see here. Hey, what's up, Skanes girl? How are you this evening?
Hello.
Not my kind of Karen.
I love that name.
Yeah, it says, my gripe with my husband is, if we can't access it easily, it's junk. Huh. If we can't access it easily, it's junk. Yeah, that's probably not a bad way to look at it. I mean, gosh, you can stuff all kinds of things in a lot of places, and maybe you'll use them someday, maybe you won't.
See, that's a problem though. When you stuff them in places and you forget about them.
That's entirely true. I mean, I was cleaning out that room and I was like, oh, I forgot about these clothes. I forgot about this. Forgot about that. And it's just like, it goes, you just, I don't know. Yeah. We're easily distracted by the new shiny object. And in fact, let me just say this. The reason why I was cleaning that out where I got all my stuff, right, is because I want to buy something else. So we're making room for something else coming in that has yet to be disclosed. But I got a birthday coming up, so Rebecca's going to be good to me, and I'm not going to turn that down. So that's awesome.
So this is his birthday / Christmas present.
Yeah. It's all
so
of
to
that.
let you know, it's kind of big.
It's not big. It's just, it's a chunk of money, but whatever. I'll use it. Yeah.
It's fairly big.
400 pounds. So I need to make room. Let's see. Bill Warner says, I went to a reputable nursery and bought some soil amendment that was said to be inert. It was pounds of shredded plastic from old plant pots and solo cups. Yeah, that's not cool, man. I don't know what that's all about.
Oh, did you ask for your money back?
Yeah, that's not reputable, man. Like that's not it. Compost and soil should be made from organic material. Once living or living material is organic. Solo cups and shredded whatever the hell is not. And so, yeah, you should have definitely went back and gave them the what for and said, hey, man, I want a refund. And yeah, I would have made an issue of that. But yeah, I'll put that up on the screen. That's what Bill says. So not cool. Let's see here. I'm just trying to read all these comments as they come through. It says, I have a source for IBC totes that are food grade for my for between $50 and $60 each. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great way to go if you're looking maybe for some water storage or water catchment. I think they're 300 gallons is, I believe, what those IBC totes are. So you're not going to get a tremendous amount, but you can do something where you get multiples and you chain them together. there's all different sorts of options out there with regard to that. The one thing I will note about those IBC totes is, you may want to paint them or something like that, because otherwise they're going to get algae on the inside. If you're not filtering or aerating or doing something with that water, they'll get, all greened up. So
aren't they white?
Yeah,
If
they're
I'm thinking
like
about the right thing.
they're a white clear plastic. I've got a couple out there that I got for free, and I actually turned them into, I just cut the tops out of them and I left the plastic on the inside, and I just use them for wood storage. But somebody was going to be throwing them away, so I was like, yeah, I'll take those things, because they were, after a while the plastic starts to degrade in the ultraviolet, and they were all kind of cracked because they'd been sitting out. But there's the cages of them and all of that are certainly good. Use them with a forklift, and again, a hoarder, right? A prepper. We'll take it. Don't throw that away. Don't go to the dumps, because I got something for that, right?
We have our son's freezer that we offered to take from him, and we still haven't done anything with it.
Well, we will when our other one breaks. It's always good to have like a backup freezer. That's something that's like totally worth it, especially if you're somebody who raises your own meat and you've got a tremendous amount of invested into that. If you have a freezer that goes down, guess what? You don't have to freak out. You could just go plug that one in, and you're back up and running. So, helpful little tip from the standpoint of like homesteading stuff. Another thing that I started doing, which is pretty useful, is they make these wireless Wi-Fi alarms, and they're a freezer alarm, but they work on Wi-Fi. And wireless. They send you a notification to your phone. You set the parameters about how cold that you want it to give you an alert, and so you can monitor your freezer temps at any given time. And if you have any issues where they start to dip down in temperature, you don't wind up losing your entire investment of not only meat, but when the meat starts to rot and it's stinky, you're probably going to lose your freezer as well, because you can't get that like smell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ask us how we know.
We know.
Yeah. Actually, she knows, because I was at work. I think I was on a fire or something somewhere, and that happened to her while I was gone. And so she had to deal with it.
It was probably out, I want to say 3 days. I think we actually talked about this on a previous episode, but the freezer was out for at least 3 days before I realized that it was not getting cold, and we had just slaughtered a steer. So it was packed full of meat. Smelled disgusting. Yeah,
that's not good. So having a backup freezer is not something that makes you a hoarder. That makes you smart, right? Yeah, Bill says he has 3 sizable roofs for water catchment. And yeah, that's great if you can do that. I know a lot of people are doing that, when they're gutters and finding a way to capture that and keep that on your property. It's like money in the bank, man. Yeah, Sean Mills, he's a sharp dude, man. He knows his shit with regard to the off-grid stuff. I've heard him speak a lot, and I've got a chance to meet Sean on a couple of different occasions. And he was actually going to help me here with my solar project, but it just kind of logistically, it wasn't something that, was going to be very feasible for both of us. So I went in a different direction. But yeah, Sean's a great guy. I think his website is Hack My Homestead, I believe. So yeah, let's see here. Yeah. Skane says, I plan on using 2 IBC totes to set up in a greenhouse to keep them from freezing. I will also use some black 55-gallon barrels. Yeah. Any kind of water that you can, have set aside, particularly the stuff that's not going to, be getting solar radiation into it, where you're going to wind up having to deal with the algae, because that will be an issue. So if you get that black plastic stuff, those are great to have. I've got a number of those. I'm not using them for catchment, but those would be probably a little bit more preferable, in fact, in some regards. Let's see. What else did I have to talk about? Okay. Also, last week we talked about, the issue we were having with the lady that we were selling eggs to. And so the following day, Rebecca and I went out to speak to her because I really do think that that's important, that you're direct with people, particularly people you're doing business with or whatnot. So we just went and spoke with her, and I said to her, I said, I noticed the last couple of weeks you haven't gotten any eggs from us. And I just left it there. And she said, oh yeah. I've been, cause she's doing business also with this local bakery or what have you. And so she's actually going through that lady now to get her eggs. And, she's like, oh yeah, I thought I let you know. And we were like, no, you didn't let us know. That's why we'd been holding eggs for the last couple of weeks for you. But if you're going a different direction, now we know to not hold eggs for you. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going with this other lady. And so again, I just think it's really important to close the loop on stuff like that. So there's not, any issues or ambiguity as to the direction of the thing. And that way we can put our efforts toward other people, other customers that we have, and they'll rise to the top as far as, a priority of getting eggs from us. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I guess the one thing that kind of bothered me is when she was actually there and I was going to deliver eggs, because she did not leave a message saying, yes, she wanted eggs or no, she didn't want eggs. Mm-hmm. And she made sure that one of her workers came to the window and had basically said, oh no, we don't need any eggs. But yet I could see her standing right back there. So, I mean, she obviously
as I was
didn't want to confront me at the time.
As I was saying last week, people have a hard time in confrontation. They just would rather avoid it. And instead of just being more direct and more forthcoming, a lot of people have an issue with that, and it's hard for them. I could tell she was a little bit uncomfortable with me just saying, hey, I noticed you hadn't been getting eggs from us. And I could tell her response was a little bit not defensive, but unsure about how she should respond. And it's just important to do. So now we move on, and she actually called us and wanted what she wanted.
She wanted 8 dozen eggs.
8 dozen eggs. And so we were able to actually give her, I think, 7 dozen.
Gave her 7. Because
we'd already committed to giving eggs to other people, and we wouldn't have even had 7 dozen if it hadn't been for the eggs that we were holding for her the week before. But nonetheless, we resolved that issue, and I just wanted to close the loop on that with regard to that issue. Another thing that I've been doing around here this week, I wanted to mention this as well, because it might behoove you to think about maybe planting some trees, because you know what they say, right? The best time to plant a tree, it was 20 years ago, and the next best time was today. And the next best time after that is tomorrow. So you're never going to really go wrong with planting trees unless you select the wrong kind of tree and put it in the wrong kind of place. But they're just so valuable to have on your property, particularly if they're something that is fruit bearing or going to provide you food in any regard. But just from the standpoint of aesthetics, just from the standpoint of the shade that it's going to bring to your property, the wood value, if that's the issue that you're planting it for. But right now in the fall, when it's not extreme temperatures, is a pretty good time to actually plant, because you're going to get the trees to actually have a little bit of time to stretch out. Their roots are going to start to seek. They're going to start to move and get themselves established before they, hit that period of dormancy. There's still a little bit of growing season. And it's, like I said, a good time because it's not super stressful, and now that we're getting into fall. So I like to plant this time of year. And also too, some of the nurseries are probably not moving their inventory nearly as well as they do in the spring and in the summertime, because people are thinking about other things this time of year. And so you might be able to find some deals. I know here locally at our nursery, they've got stuff in 1-gallon pots this time of year for probably $6. And last year I bought several different fruit trees or food bearing type trees for $6. I got a pomegranate, a wonderful pomegranate that's now, it was only a foot tall, if that, coming out of the pot. And now it's 7.5 feet tall. But that's being the beneficiary of being planted early, going through winter. And then by the time it hits spring, it's flourishing. And so now that's a very well-established tree that I bought for $8 or $6. And alongside of that, I've got a loquat, same thing, $6. And it's doing the same. It's probably 5 feet tall. Alongside that, I've got a pineapple guava that I put in. So these are just some examples of things that you might consider doing, because the perennials are going to be that thing that you plant on your property that's not only going to increase the value of your property, but it's going to be able to provide you food in future years. You'll be able to go out there and eat things off of your own property, and you won't have to worry about if it's been sprayed with some bullshit pesticides from the store, or if there's a supply chain issue. So the more food you can grow on your property, the better. Again, not a bad time to plant some trees right now.
Yes, I'm missing the watermelons and our own grapes coming in and our own berries.
Yeah, actually,
that's really nice.
Actually, we do have berries out there right now. We've got some goji berries that I ate this afternoon. And goji berries is another great perennial that you might consider planting, because it's gonna be coming due like right about now, late season. And it's one of those tiny little red berries that is loaded with antioxidants and phytochemicals. And, there's a lot of benefits from it as far as from your health, immune system, skin, liver, for your eyes, all of that stuff. It's got a lot of high in vitamin C. It's high in a lot of vitamins. And so, we've got berries out there right now. You just got to know where to look.
That's what I need. Berries that are good for my eyes.
Go eat some gojis. That was actually something I dug up at my son-in-law's house. Well, a little sucker next to his goji. I just dug it up, put it in a pot, brought it here, put it in the ground, and now it's producing for us. And so I've done a lot of that, just propagation, things that I see out in the wild or see somewhere that is easily brought in, and you just reproduce it on your own property. You don't have to buy it. I find joy in doing that, Mm-hmm. We're still harvesting things around here, man. I don't know how many tomatoes you pulled today, but
a lot.
Yeah, a bushel or so, dang near, man. Not quite enough for her to can, but we're not.
I probably could fill a quart jar, but not enough to actually set up the whole canning process.
Right.
It would be a waste.
Yeah, we've got enough to keep us going, and right now with that. So they're still producing. We've still got squash that are coming on. Kind of late season stuff we just ate some last night. Mm-hmm. Peppers, strawberries, still harvesting pumpkins. It's still abundant around here. So that's kind of nice.
It is nice. It's nice that you don't have to go buy them at the store.
I want to, my next move is to plant some of those beds up in lettuce, because there's hardly nothing better to me than fresh lettuce. It's such a difference from what you get in the store. And so we eat a lot of salads around here, a lot of greens, and that's something that we'll be doing. Another thing that we did here this last week is Rebecca canned some beets. And I might have mentioned this earlier, but my beet harvest this year sucked. So what we did is we went to a store that sells a lot of organic produce, and we bought some beets. We bought some organic beets and spent, I think it was like about $10 or $12 for these beets. But you were able to put up 4 quarts, right?
4 quarts.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had one of them that didn't seal. However, it's in the refrigerator, and you might have that on your salad
tonight, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's, beets are such another good thing to have. And you either like them or you don't. She don't like them,
they taste like dirt,
which is great for me because I love them. They're great for lowering your blood pressure. They're great for all kinds of things. They're just a really a great root vegetable. Great at fighting inflammation, digestive health. They got a lot of fiber in them. So I love them. So,
but they still taste like dirt.
Yeah. But consider doing that. If you don't, maybe you didn't grow something that you wanted to grow in your garden this year, maybe consider investing a little bit of money, and this wasn't much. It was like what, 10 or 12 bucks, and we got they're full quart jars,
Mm-hmm.
and we might get a little bit more because I love having beets all winter long, and I'm gonna have to get some of those in the ground. But anyhow, let me see if I can get caught up here. Bill says that he's not the type of person that gets mad. He gets even.
Oh, I'm right with you.
Yep.
I'm. I have to. I might have told you this story. We were up deer hunting, and Eric really was pushy in the fact that he wanted me to cook dinner, and I was socializing with people. Anyway, it rubbed me the wrong way. So I went over to barbecue steaks and one of the steaks fell off the barbecue and I just picked it up and flipped it up, but I set it over to the side because I was still angry.
Did it bother me? Did I mind that I had?
It didn't. I made sure that he got that steak.
Well, that's
and
not
it
right.
It was hysterical because he was eating it. He goes, "Man, this steak tastes really good. Really tastes kind of piney." And I had a hard time laughing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I bet it does.
Yeah, I must have been drinking. I don't know. Bill Warner says, I actually use old broken refrigerators and freezers as raised beds and fastening aged half rotten wood on the outside. Huh. Yeah, that's an interesting scenario. I'd like to see that, man. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that seems like that would work, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You'd have to do something for drainage, but yeah, that's being resourceful. And
well, it's the same as using the bathtubs for.
And he says he's using scrap lumber to encase the IBC totes. Huh? Yeah, that might be a good idea, because then you're gonna keep out the light, and then it's going to protect that plastic from degradation. So that's probably a pretty astute idea there. If you can do that, get some old pallets or something. Yeah, that's quite a project. Bill Warner says the 2 50-year-old red oak trees drop enough acorns to feed my pigs all winter long. I have a breeding pair of cooney pigs at this time. Another great resource and valuable thing if it works for you.
I don't know that I've ever seen a cooney pig.
Yeah, they're kind of like smaller or something. They're like kind of like a turned up nose or whatever. I think they're kind of a homesteading type of a pig or whatever. Let's see here. I recently learned that the tannins in acorns are a great parasite control agent. Yeah, I think one thing to consider with certain animals, you don't want them to overdose on that. I feed it to my sheep, but if you feed anything one thing of enough of too much of any one thing, those tannins can develop kind of a toxic load in your animals, and you may wind up with a problem. I don't know how pigs long term or whatever are gonna, if that's gonna affect them, but like with sheep, I feed it to my sheep, but I know that you can't just let them have free range of that, because like I said, they'll get a toxic load and have issues for sure. Yeah. Hey, what's up? Bill Zegley in the house. Yeah, he says, Bill says, coonies are a grazing pig that are lard pigs. So, yeah, Brianna was actually interested in getting coonies at one point, but I don't know. I think she kind of dropped that idea. Wanted to mention the debate from the other night with Tim Walls and JD Vance. And, I know I came out a little strong against JD when he first came on the scene, and I had my doubts about the guy. I still don't know kind of if he's completely legit, but he seems legit. He seems like he's a very genuine guy, and I don't think he has any alternative motives as far as being like some kind of a deep state, plant or something like that that's just trying to get close to Trump or whatever. And I say that only because he was a never Trumper when he came in. But everybody can change their mind. Everybody has a tendency to grow from previous decisions. I know that I can fall into that category frequently. A lot of things I learn going forward, and I'm not afraid to acknowledge that. But I thought the debate was very. I don't know, man. He looked. I thought he looked very capable.
Yeah, he holds his composure.
Yeah, and I think the other guy, Tim Walz. I mean, that dude is a fucking wingnut. I mean, he just is absolutely like a wingnut. I don't know what his deal is, but he didn't represent himself very well, and it was pretty evident. I think in the media probably wanted him to hit it out of the park, but he's not equipped to do that, and JD really made him look kind of like a fool up there, which, I don't know. It is what it is. But one thing I think that the Democrats are so good at is their messaging. They're so good at messaging. They really seem to be in unison and in lockstep with their messaging. You remember there was that video, I've played it on this broadcast before, where all the media was coming out saying the same exact thing. They're a threat to democracy. It's a threat to democracy.
Every channel.
Yeah. And every channel was just saying the same thing. And it was just like so bizarre. And then the JD Vance comes on the scene, and then there's another like lockstep messaging thing that came out where he's weird. JD Vance is weird. And they were all saying he was weird. But it turns out actually the guy that was saying he was weird is the one who's actually weird. Tim Walz. The guy he's just a strange cat, man.
He is strange.
It's kind of, it's odd, but it goes back to what I was saying, before about projection. The Democrats are so good at projection. They're always projecting onto you that which they are doing themselves, talking about, oh, Trump's not going to relinquish, the presidency. Well, he's already done that. He showed that he could do that, right? That's their big fear, is that if he gets back in there, he won't do this or he won't do that. They're always claiming somebody else is going to do something that is actually what they're doing. That, oh, he's a threat to democracy. Well, there's really only one side that's targeting all of the rights of the people, challenging the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and all of those things. But, that's beside the point. What I was trying to get to is the fact that they came out after the video, after the debate, and they were saying this about JD. And I had to wonder, man, this is the very next day. Are all of these dudes on a group text? How do they know this all to say? How do they all know to say this same fucking talking point? They got to be on a group text.
As slick as a needle last night.
He was too slick, maybe.
He's a little too slick for that.
Vance came off a bit slick tonight.
JD Vance was a very slick debater.
The slicker speaker.
I think he looked at shifty, he looked at slick.
Over and over, you heard lies and kind of slick answers from JD Vance.
JD Vance changes personalities like most people change suits. Slick, slick, slick.
When you look over at JD Vance, you see a slick guy.
We all know, having worked with Van Jones, how these Yale-educated lawyers very slick.
No matter how slick JD may have sounded today, there is nothing decent about him.
This man is standing here lying to the country, and that's where JD Vance was his slickest.
JD Vance was very slick, but he was slick like a snake oil salesman.
JD Vance is slick and smooth, but he is still a bullshit artist.
Interesting, I think. Would you not say? How does that happen the very next day? It's got to be a group text. So they're very good at their messaging. I think there's a lot of people that are just dissatisfied with the Democrats, quite honestly. And I will say this. Let me mention this. I think that the polling is starting to reflect that, not only in what they're willing to tell you, the polling is saying, but the actual polling that they've done that the parties, or excuse me, the campaigns do internally, they're looking at the numbers and they realize that probably Kamala's not doing well. And the reason why I say that, I felt that way like a week and a half ago, because a week and a half ago I was in the gym. I'm up on the treadmill just looking at the wall of, MSNBC and, Fox News and all the bullshit that they got up on the screens. And Kamala was starting to run ads for vote for me for president in California. That never happens, man. Democrats don't run fucking ads in California. So that kind of perked me up. I went, that's interesting. They must know something. And so they have been talking about her slipping in the poll numbers, and there's dissatisfaction in this and that, which I think is probably people are starting to wake up and realize, oh, the honeymoon's over. She's kind of a retard. She can't hold a sentence. She can't go out and do interviews. She's hiding from the press. She's not asking for our vote. She's going on Oprah. And then she's fucking that up. So,
well, you notice it when she kind of gets locked up and Oprah finishes, well, this is what you mean, and kind of finishes what it is that they would like her to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all very scripted. It's too bad they can't figure out a better script with how to respond to a hurricane. And I'm going to talk about that here just real shortly, because I think a lot of people are, have questions about it, and they're kind of upset, quite honestly, and they damn well should be. I think people should have a greater level of disdain and disgust with how things have been handled. But I've got some perspective on that. Bill Zegley says the power of the talking points and their minions for the D Party, the Democrat Party. Yeah, they have. There was actually a video that just came out. I didn't really want to play any of it or whatever, but it was it was from the guy that does Project Veritas. I can't think of his name right now, but he's been doing his thing for a lot of years, doing undercover investigative journalism. And he came out and he had this pretty long and lengthy, undercover hidden camera interview with one of the producers or what have you from MSNBC. And he was basically just acknowledging, oh yeah, we're doing our job. We're trying to get her elected. We're doing all this stuff. And I mean, just openly saying it, right? Which it's not a surprise to anybody. Everybody knows it, but here's this idiot, dumbass, executive from MSNBC sitting there saying this on camera. And so, I don't know. I just wish more people were less partisan in a sense and could see when somebody's telling them a lie and then call out that, hey, my side's lying. Because I would do that if my side was lying. I've done that. Most people would do that. If my side was challenging and threatening the Constitution, the thing that's supposed to keep government in check, I think I'd probably have a problem with that, regardless of oh, hey, my party's going to be in power or whatever. I don't know. It's just interesting to me. Anyhow, I was starting to get a little distracted there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like it would be a mind opener for people who are watching. If you're flipping the channels and they're saying the exact same thing, why is that? Why do they have to say the exact same thing? I mean, clearly they don't have a mind of their own. They have to read what it is that's on their teleprompter, of which they're being told to say.
Right. But, I mean, they're getting paid. You know how many people have been getting paid? They've all done it, right? You got all these people out there now, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Bill O'Reilly, right? They were all fucking reading the thing and playing the game as best they could. Tucker was kind of out there. That's kind of what got him fired. Bill was out there. That's what got him fired. And they're all part of it. Now they're not a part of it. They've decided to step away. But there's still people there that are making a living. And, they got BMW payments, man. They got a fucking apartment in wherever that costs them $4,000 a month or more.
Yeah, I'm talking about the average citizen sitting there watching that and seeing that on every channel. And why is that?
Yeah.
Why is it the exact same language on every single one? The same word being repeated over and over and over again.
I think the average person, Rebecca, doesn't actually watch more than a couple of different things. They go to what is going to give them the information that they believe in. If you're a person who believes a certain thing, you're not going to like try to go to all these different places, right? You're just going to go to the place that you believe is telling you the truth.
Well, you should.
Yeah, you know, I guess that would be a good
come
idea.
up with an informed decision on your own.
Yeah, that's would make the most sense, but people don't always make the most sense. You know, I can't explain why people do what they do, but it is kind of shocking. Bill Zegley says, yes, they need to make sure all of the new voters, illegals, know what name to look for since Sleepy Joe is no longer running. Yeah. I just saw a video on that too, pretty recently. I downloaded it, but it was super lengthy, so I didn't want to try to chop it up and bring it in. But it was from Bill Bergram, who does that America's Voice or something like that. Real America's Voice, I think, is his media channel. And he kind of focuses on the issues with regard to the illegal immigration. And this was at a hotel. It was a Holiday Inn in, I believe, Chicago, I think, or maybe Wisconsin or something.
It was Chicago.
Okay, it was Chicago. And he was just trying to like, hey, I want to come get a room here. And, you know, I'm a platinum member for Holiday Inn. I want to get a room. Oh no, you can't get a room here. This is closed. And then, you know, he knew that it was a bunch of migrants and shit in there, but it was basically this whole thing had been taken over and given funding from the federal government to house these migrants. And, you know, she was just like, oh, you can't come in here. I'm going to call the police on you, this and that. And he's asking her all these questions about it. And it you know, this is going on in our country right now, you know? And so, yes, illegals are being treated better than a lot of our citizens. And, you know, I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know why they're doing it. Maybe they're doing that because obviously they want the vote, right? That's the whole master plan. But there might be a secondary motivation too, if you think about it. Because they might want people to get so pissed off that they wind up doing something about it. Because at some point, people are going to do something about something. You know, you can't just keep getting fucked over and not listened to by your government. And then all of a sudden, somebody's going to react in a way that gives them cause to say, well, see, look what they're doing now. It's an insurrection. We need to take this action because these people have done this. See, they're the problem. Is there a secondary motivation to them flaunting their inability to take care of their own citizens and placing a preference on illegals? Is there something behind that, Rebecca, do you think? Or,
you know, I have always thought that they're bringing them over here for the vote.
Of course.
She's going to need it.
That's cool.
And as they're bussing them in, it would not surprise me if they're not actually filling out their ballots at that point. We don't have to in California have voter ID. You just get to come in and vote. They're not going to check. And we watched the last time, we watched the boxes being pulled out from underneath the tables and slid in. So what's going to stop them?
Yeah, there's no willingness to give the people of this country an assurance that the vote is going to be correctly tallied. There's no real vigor on either side to make that happen, and that's the real problem I see. But yes, that is probably their overarching. Ask yourself this: Would Kamala and the Democrats be interested in putting those people in hotels if they were all voting for Trump?
Absolutely not.
Right.
And I believe that once the election is over, they're just going to drop the ball, and then we're going to have all of these illegals that they'll have nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to continue to put them up in hotels because they no longer need them.
Right.
They're bringing them in for a specific reason, and then they no longer need them. So yes, I believe the crime will go up. It will lead into other problems.
It already has. It already has. And we're going to get to see that here real shortly. So hold on to your hats, guys. and make sure that you are making yourself as secure as you possibly can do. Because when things go down, you don't want to have to be that person running to the store to get toilet paper or being down in a line getting yourself gas, do you? Would it be nice just to stay at your house and not have to worry about getting involved in chaos and just try and chill out for a minute? Because it's not going to do any good to go to the streets. Because at some point, people are going to go to the streets. Is it going to happen during this election cycle? Well, we're going to find out. Because they've tried just about everything, right? They've tried to shoot him twice. They've tried to all the other things. And do you think they're going to stop even when they see that the poll numbers don't reflect? There's going to have to be something else that diverts people's attention from things that are going on.
I don't think they're going to stop.
No, of course not. It's not in their interest to stop, right? It's not in their interest. But let me get to the weekly quote, liberal or conservative, now that we're on the topic. I'll read this to you, and then you decide, is it a liberal or is it a conservative? First, we must stop issuing driver's licenses to people in our country illegally. Providing them with forms of government identification makes a mockery of our laws and undermines national security efforts. So, Rebecca, do you think that's a liberal or conservative?
Again, depending on when it came out, if I'm reading it for nowadays, I would say that it was conservative.
Okay. I think that's a solid bet. Hogs 14 agrees with you. He as well says that it's conservative. And that quote actually came from somebody I used to like quite a bit. And I had almost forgotten about this guy, quite honestly, because he stepped away from politics. But it's from Bobby Jindal. And Bobby Jindal was an American politician who served as the 55th governor of the state of Louisiana from 2008 until 2016. And he is a member of the Republican Party. I think he was quite an accomplished politician who ran in 2016 seeking the Republican nomination, but he wound up dropping out after having only 1% support among the Republican electorate. During his campaign, he called Donald Trump a narcissist, which is true, and an egomaniacal madman, which is questionable. But afterward, it said that he would support Donald Trump because electing Donald Trump would be the second worst thing we could do this November, better than only electing Hillary Clinton to serve as the third term for the Obama administration's radical policies. And in 2017, Jindal retired from politics and re-entered the private sector. Yeah, I think that's kind of how it should be. People should do their time and return to the private sector. So I think that that's an admirable thing for him to have done. A lot of people tend to do that. And it doesn't appear to me that he's some lobbyist somewhere or he's still trying to, put himself out there as a fucking contributor on MSNBC or Fox News or something like that. So, yeah, he's just getting on with his life, apparently. But I think he was right on with that quote. What do you think, Rebecca?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. I really wish that there were term limits on the on everything in the government, not just the president's.
Yeah, I think I understand. I've heard the argument from both sides, and I think that if it hadn't been that they've set the districts up for themselves so that they really can't be voted out, because that's essentially kind of what they've done. They've redrawn the districts to reflect something that is going to be in their favor. Thereby, they're kind of, it's very difficult to unseat, these politicians once they get in there. And unfortunately, they have, the power of lobbying and the dirty part of politics to keep them in power. So I would agree that there should be term limits at this point because they've manipulated the system beyond what the founders had intended for it to be, where the people actually get to vote and put the people in that are doing, the best job. But they've kind of manipulated it in a way that where they're not able to be removed from office very easily. So
some of them just look like corpses.
Yeah, true. I had a comment this week, and I guess that would serve as our kind of Q&A for the week, but it was from somebody who tried your flatbread. It's from Harry Kent Thepworth, 7394, and he said, "We, my wife and me, tried Rebecca's flatbread recipe. It was, as you stated, wonderful as a basic recipe. However, as you stated, you can improvise as desired. We added raw, sweet white diced onions to the recipe. I can only imagine diced peppers, etc." And I said, "Awesome. That sounds amazing with the onions. We'll have to give that a try. Glad you enjoyed it."
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah. So
I know I kind of experiment, or I tried different cheeses on it that have different flavors and whatnot, because it is kind of fragile.
Yeah,
I'm hesitant in putting any other things in it that have too much weight to it.
Yeah, we had it a couple times last week, and looking forward to your next batch. So moving on to the weekly poll. Let me get to
But before we get there, garlic in it is very good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we grew plenty of that. We got still a grip of it, and there's going to be more coming. Love garlic. Yeah, no vampires. Hogs 14 says, "Bill, they tried that in California, changed my daughter's party to dim after she renewed her ID." And Bill was referring to motor voter in Oregon was an automatic registration for voters. Yeah. Hogs 14 says, "They tried to close the voter registration in Pennsylvania early 6 p.m. for maintenance on the day of Trump's rally in Butler. They changed their tune real quick on an uproar." Yeah, I don't know, man. They're really working hard to manipulate the vote and keep it as confusing for people as possible. And I've said from the start that Trump's going to have the most votes. Trump's going to have the most support. We'll just see how things play out, because I don't really have confidence in, the ability for the system not to be manipulated, because of what I saw last time. It was fucking right there for everybody to see.
This last rally in Butler that he had, pretty awesome. He had just great music. He had the painter that was there. It was just a well done rally.
Yeah. He's quite something, that guy. But let me get to the weekly poll. And I put out a poll this last week and asking the question, how many hours of sleep per night do you average? And 327 people cast their vote. And when I pulled that up today, I was actually kind of surprised at the result, because it was very evenly spread. I gave the choice between either 5 hours or less, and on the top end, it was either 8 hours or more. And so coming in at 5 hours or less was 26%. 6 hours was also 26%. 32% of the respondents said 7 hours. And 8 hours or more, there were 17% of the people that responded said that they got 8 hours or more, which I was pretty surprised to actually see the number that high.
So how many hours do you get?
I have actually been averaging over the last month a little over 7.5 hours. And we know this because both of us have a watch that we wear. It's a running watch, an athletic watch, and it tracks our sleep. And so we just wear it, when we sleep at night, and it'll kind of keep track of when you wake up and then the different phases of your sleep. And one thing that I've noticed is that if I don't get enough REM sleep, REM stands for rapid eye movement. It's a part of your sleep pattern when your brain is essentially repairing itself. It's cleansing itself. It's the most restorative for your mind, that particular phase of sleep.
You're also dreaming.
Right. If I don't get 2 to 3 hours, which 3 hours is pretty rare, but if I can get 2 hours and a little more than 2 hours, I feel very well rested. If I get less than an hour and a half, I wake up feeling like I'm not well rested, even though I'm getting an average of about an hour and a half every night of deep sleep, which is what my body generally requires. And the deep sleep portion repairs your body, your muscles, and all of that. And so that's really important. But the mind needs that REM sleep. And it's just an interesting thing to track. But yeah, I've been getting about 7.5 for the last month. And she probably gets at least half an hour, if not more. She's a better sleeper than I. But I did last week. I was pretty proud of myself. I woke up very well rested. And when I looked to see how long I had slept, I slept for 10 hours and 18 minutes, which has not happened probably since I was about 13.
That was amazing.
That was very amazing. But I felt like, wow, man, I'm like, I feel so good. And it goes to show how important sleep actually is for people. Obviously, different people require different levels of sleep. It's not like everybody needs 8 hours. But generally speaking, if you were to get more sleep rather than the sleep that you're probably getting, you'd probably feel a little bit better is the point. Because it's just your body needs that. Can't avoid it.
I'm usually in between the 8 and the 9, and occasionally the 10 hours.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. She's a sleeper. I'm jealous. Yeah, let me get caught up here. Bill Warner says both sides are trying hard to segregate the people, not actually unite them for what's the betterment of the people. That which you've just said right there plays into the last part of tonight's broadcast that I wanted to talk about, because it plays into a question that I asked ChatGPT. And I'll get to that in a minute, but you're spot on. Let's see here. Not That Kind of Karen says, next poll should be, how many uninterrupted hours of sleep do you get? Yeah, that's pretty good, I guess. We actually get our sleep time is like longer than, because we lay down at about 8 o'clock every night. And then usually by about 8:15, we're probably asleep.
He's asleep.
Yeah.
Snoring.
Right.
Him and the dog.
So, but yeah, so I get more time in the sack. I just, my sleep is about 7.5 hours, which I have to work to do, because if I'm going to stay up till 10, then I'm going to be up at 5 or maybe even earlier, because circadian rhythm, I'm going to see daylight or whatever. So I need to physically lay down at a specific time. And I've been making a real effort to do that. So that's a good thing, right?
It's not a problem for me.
Yeah. What's up, Dean Mullis in the house? How are you, man? Good to see you. Bill says that he usually gets about 7 or 8 hours of sleep. Only in the past 10 years. Before that, I would get less than 6 hours of sleep. Yeah. A lot of it has to do with, the level of involvement in your life and what you're doing. People that are busy, or they're, dealing with kids, or, there's other, extrinsic factors that are going to cause people to, have less sleep than more. We're in a good position where we don't, have those outside influences, so to speak, so we can call our shots with regard to that. And I just think it's a good thing to do for your health, so that's why I brought it up.
Mostly, unless our dog decides that she needs to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, which occasionally happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill says that you sound like his wife, that she's jealous of how fast he goes to sleep too. Yeah. I don't know, man. I have a problem at night. It's nice laying down. And our car's crowing about there too. And That's another reason why I'm going to have to get rid of them dudes, man. Not that really bothers me. It's just, I don't know. I might keep one of them, but one of them's got to go, and I need to get going with that. Dean Mullis says 8 hours of sleep, even if it takes 3 days. Yeah, I know that feeling, man, from back in the day. I know that feeling for sure. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to talk about the hurricane thing. And, I wanted to give my perspective, I suppose, on the government's disaster response and point out a couple of examples where I think that the government is really making a huge mistake. I mean, obviously they've made just a tremendous amount of mistakes, but there's 2 areas where I think that they're really failing. And I think it would be so much better received. Even their failures would be better received if they were in fact taking care of these 2 issues. And, I'm coming at this from the standpoint of somebody who has worked in emergency incident management for 30 years. And I've worked in a agency, or the agency, that I believe is probably the best in the world at dealing with disaster response. And I had the opportunity, on the later portions of my career to work on one of the emergency incident management teams. And I did so for 8 years, both as a logistics section chief and an operations branch director. But before I guess get to that, I wanted to just, play a video. And the video is one that's passionate. It's from Eric Trump. He's pissed off. And I think he has the sentiment that he's expressing here is one that I think a lot of people share. And so I wanted you to take a look at this before we dive into it.
There are 157 hotels in New York City that are completely full of illegal immigrants. Let me just repeat that number. 150 hotels in New York City that are completely full of illegal immigrants. New York City alone spends over $1 billion a year on illegal immigrants. And then you see these pictures of husbands and wives and children who have lost everything. Their homes have floated down rivers. Their homes have been taken out by mudslides. Their vehicles are gone. Their picture albums are destroyed. Every sentimental value that they could ever possibly imagine is gone. Will never be brought back. And what does Kamala do? She comes out and offers $750. $750. The TV in the person's house costs more than $750, and you see the absolute destruction. Sean, of all the political things that I've seen in the last decade, this is the one that bothers me the most. Hands down, by far. We have spent $200 billion sending money over to Ukraine and Russia to see young, innocent 21-year-old kids in dirty trenches pop around corners and shoot each other in the face with AK-47s. You watch these videos on YouTube, the lives are expunged in a matter of seconds. $200 billion America has sent over there. Yet we can't take care of our own in Georgia and North Carolina and Virginia. In Florida, $750. We send billions to places like Pakistan. And they won't tell us that bin Laden is literally living next to their equivalent of West Point. Yet we offer devastated families, the very people you're showing on the screen right now, we offer devastated families $750. Sean, this is the worst administration in the history of the country. These aren't serious people. Frankly, I think they're cruel people. The way they put Americans last is absolutely cruel. And I hope every single person going to the polls on November 5th and before in early voting will remember exactly who these people are.
Yeah. So again, I think that's a lot of people are pissed off, and really they should be. Here I sit in California. I'm not really affected in the way that people who are in those communities have been affected. But let me tell you something. We know devastation here too. It's happened in this state as well. We've had devastation, but not probably to the effect that these folks have had to deal with. I mean, they have been hit in a way that I don't think anybody really could have anticipated. But you know who should have anticipated this? The fucking federal government. And the reason why is because they have an agency that is supposed to be able to respond to incidents like this. And they're supposed to be able to mobilize. And they're supposed to do so with professionalism and timeliness. And they're supposed to be able to provide answers to the people. And they're not doing that. They're failing. They're failing badly. And I say that not because this isn't a monumental task to undertake, but because I used to work for an agency that I think that if CAL FIRE was tasked with this fucking hurricane, it would be run a lot differently. I can assure you of that. And one of the reasons why is because the system that everybody operates underneath is called the Incident Command System, the ICS system. And it was developed in California in the 1970s as a result of a fire that happened in Southern California. It was a group of people came together as a consortium. It's called FireScope, and it was developed. And so our agency has actually been utilizing this system since that time. We get a lot of practice. The federal government just came on board, I believe, in 2006, where all of the national agencies are now under what's called NIMS, the National Incident Management System. And so they are responsible to operate in the ICS system. One of the reasons why they are failing, and this is no excuse on their behalf, because they shouldn't be failing. There's no excuse for their failures. But one of the reasons why they are failing is because they don't get a lot of practice. They have a high turnover rate and attrition in between their last major deployment. So when was the last time they had a major incident that they had to manage? Katrina, Hugo, Irma, Hurricane Sandy, right? These things are spread out over time. They don't get a lot of practice. Our agency does this every fucking summer, multiple times. And so they're very well practiced at it. You could take our agency and put them in the middle of nowhere with no communications, nothing. And by the next day, there's an entire infrastructure set up. And this could happen at the federal level if they had their shit together. Because you know why? They have unlimited resources with regard to money. They say, oh, well, we gave the money to illegals. Well, that's true. They did do that. But you know what's also true? They can come up with money if it was a priority. But it's not a priority for them. They've decided to make other things a priority. They are very reactive rather than proactive. And that's really quite the problem. So how these incidents are structured is they go through what's called an IC or an incident commander. That's the person at the top, right? And they can do this in a number of different ways. They can set up multiple incident bases. They can zone this out, right? Have different zones, but they all go through a central command through the IC or a collection of individuals who have been tasked to make that decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that they've failed at is information flow, because in this structure, you've got a number of section chiefs that are right below the IC. And then there's only two positions that are above that. So they don't go through anybody but the IC, and they're put there for a reason. Kind of like the First and the Second Amendment are where they are because it's so important. They're put first and second underneath the IC because they are so important, but they've failed in both of those avenues as far as from what I can see looking from the West Coast and just seeing what I see people reporting over the internet. The first thing that they've done is they've failed in the flow of information. They should be providing information to the public, not only the people that are there in the theater of operations, not only people that are there in that local area, but people around the country have a vested interest in knowing what's going on in our own country. and this is a devastating, very impactful thing. News and information needs to flow freely, and they're not doing that in a viable way. They're not doing that in a way that's satisfying people's questions, and they're not providing those answers. That's pretty clear to everybody, I would say. And so the PIO, the public information officer, sits right below the incident commander, and he has a direct tie to the incident commander for that reason, because it's so incredibly important. Our agency has learned throughout the years that you need to get out ahead of this thing. You need to be able to provide people with information. And so all of the briefings, all the operational briefings are all filmed, and all of that stuff is put out in real time, as well as it's provided links on all of the social media platforms that you could possibly imagine. So whether it's TikTok or it's X or Facebook, there's always going to be a link, and they usually do 2 operational, briefings, like a morning and an evening. And so that's just getting out ahead of things so that people can stay informed in their own communities. They can get the information that they need. That's so important, and they're not doing that. That's a huge fail. The second thing that they failed at, which I think is almost it's equally as egregious, and that's the other position that's alongside the public information officer is the liaison officer. So those are the only 2 positions. That's your First and your Second Amendment, right underneath the IC. And so the liaison officer, they're responsible for coordinating all of the different stakeholders in that particular geographical theater of operations. And there's an entire plethora of different stakeholders that have a vested interest when something happens of this scale and this magnitude, all the way from fishing game to, schools to churches to, everything. All of the different agencies, local, state, federal, they all have a need to know what's going on and to be able to participate. And it has to be coordinated through that liaison officer. That's their job, to communicate that from the IC so that they're getting the overall plan, and they're all on the same page. The problem with them not really co-opting the volunteerism that's out there, there's a tremendous amount of people who want to help, citizens, good citizens that are out there that are getting supplies, and they're loading it in their trucks and their vehicles, and they're trying to help. Those people are being turned away. There's people trying to provide air rescue and things like that. Those people are being turned away. I know why they're being turned away. And it makes sense on one hand, but the problem is they're not taking those people and co-opting them and putting them to work doing something, because people want to help. People want to feel like they have a say. They're doing something to provide for their communities. And so when you turn people away that are bringing in supplies and you're telling them, hey, this shit is closed, get out of here, it's not going to leave a good taste in people's mouths. They need to come up with a better way and a better solution on how to co-opt those volunteers and to utilize not only their equipment and their resources, but give them purpose. Mm-hmm. There needs to be control of the airspace. You can't just have fucking helicopters flying all over the place, right? They need to shut down that airspace. They can't have volunteer dudes just, rodeoing it at this point. But the problem is that they were rodeoing it and doing it just fine before the feds showed up. So now that the feds are there, they need to figure out a way to integrate those people into the operation. And if it's not flying their helicopters, they need to be able to have them doing something that's involved in the air program. That would solve a lot of problems. That would keep a lot of people from bitching. That would keep a lot of people from feeling like they're not being able to contribute to this rescue effort. It's a very important thing to do, and I think that they've clearly failed at that. Another thing that needs to happen, and I understand the Fed's side of things because they're closing people out. The people that are showing up, hey, we want to help. Here's a truckload of fucking diapers or water or whatever. We're taking it up to this community or whatever. And they're turning people away. Again, they need to figure out a way to embrace that rather than just saying, hey, stay out. But the reality is that once you leave the area, you know, if you're being told to evacuate from your residence, you don't have to evacuate. They can't remove you forcibly. That's your property. You have rights to stay there. Oh, this is a mandatory evacuation, sir. No, I'm staying.
Mm-hmm.
They can't remove you from your property. The problem for you now is if you leave, they can keep you from coming back to your property.
So we know this because of our son losing his house, my brother losing his house, your parents. Well, unfortunately, they sold. But as far as leaving and not being able to get in, being able to get back in.
I know this because I know the law and I know my job.
Right, but I'm saying
I know what happens.
Personally, this has happened to us,
and
they have not been able to get back in.
Yeah, of course. They need to do that, man, because there's people up there that actually fucking loot from people. Do you know that? Think about the scumbags that are out there that are actually stealing from people who have lost damn near everything. That happens. That happens on fires. That happens on all of that. And so, like I said, once you leave your property, you're going to not be allowed to come back in. And so if you're up there running around trying to help people, you're going to run into some opposition there from law enforcement. Law enforcement, again, is just doing their job, but there needs to be a better way to handle this. They need to be able to co-opt these people. It's entirely possible to do that. And they haven't done that. And so I think those are a couple of the areas where I see that, you know, the federal government could do a much better job. They could make this a priority, and they could secure the people that actually know what to do. They could get the best talent that's out there to be on one of these national teams. They've got people that are on their federal teams from their fires and stuff like that, but they fight fire and they mobilize so much different than do we in our agency. Our agency has to be ready to make it happen quick. And like I say, when we do it, it's like overnight. There's food coming out of the trailer the next day. There's communication set up. Well, shit, this was an empty field yesterday, and now it's like a city. You've got the entire organizational structure of an incident right out of there from the city, and it's all coming, with a common directive and a common purpose. And the difference here, I think, this is a huge incident, huge thing, but when FEMA comes rolling in, the incident has already occurred. You know, it's like the area of destruction is already established. Whereas the difference is when you're doing it and it's dynamic and you're coming in, it's still a wildfire that's moving through multiple jurisdictions, through multiple operational periods. That makes things a lot more tricky, a lot more necessity for coordination from a lot of different agencies. And like I say, when you do it a lot, you become good at it. And the feds just aren't that fucking good at it. They'll get good at it now because they got another one they're got on their hands, right? They've got Florida's being impacted here in the next couple of days. And so depending on how this shakes out, I would hope that they would be a little bit more proactive and maybe learn from this thing that's happening, on the last one on Hurricane Helene. But it's just the way it is, man. Let's see here. I might have missed some comments while I was on my rant.
I think it's kind of a slap in the face, though, to offer them $750.
Yeah. I will say this. I would imagine that's not the extent of the money that is going to flow to some of these people through FEMA. It's going to be a lot more than that at some point, but the whole idea that you're going to give somebody $750 after they've lost every fucking thing, it's like, what is that even for? What am I going to do with that? I don't even have a car. What are you talking about?
I don't have a bank.
Yeah. No, I mean, you just lost everything. And it's almost like, what is that going to do? Well, I guess I go buy some food or something, I don't know. It is quite a slap in the face. And that's what you see with government, guys. They're going to get there, like I said last week. And for some of these people, unfortunately, I think it's too late. There's people up there now who probably haven't been served. They're going to get there, but by the time they do, it's too late, man. And I just really feel sorry for a lot of these people, because some of them had their preps. Some of them were, they had all their shit in their house, and now their house is gone. Or maybe they've lost a loved one, or maybe they weren't not expecting this. We expect wildfires here in California. We expect earthquakes in California. They expect tornadoes in Kansas, right? If you're on the Gulf Coast in Florida, you kind of expect that, hey, we're going to have hurricane season. And so most of those people are kind of considering like, hey, maybe I'll have flood insurance, or maybe I'll do this. But if you live in the mountains somewhere, you're not anticipating a freaking wall of water 20 feet wide taking out your entire town and killing a bunch of people. That's so very unforeseen. So I really do feel, I feel bad for those people. I've been thinking about them all week, thinking about what they've had to endure. And I wish it was better for them with regard to the response, because I know it can be so much better. I know that they can provide them a much better level of service. But again, the willingness isn't there to secure the best talent and to spend the money appropriately, because the money has been spent elsewhere. Right?
Mm-hmm. Let you know what's important.
Yeah.
And it's not their own U.S. citizens.
Yeah, Hogs14 says, our own citizens are on the street after the disaster, but we house illegals. It really pisses me off. I think it probably pisses a lot of people off,
Yeah, absolutely.
I know I'm not okay with it when I see that. The fact that we're sending money abroad to all these places, I think they just sent a bunch of money over to Lebanon. What the fuck do I care about Lebanon? That's taxpayer money that, my grandchildren are going to have to pay back. What do I care what's going on in fucking Lebanon? How about we stay over here? I don't know. It says, Bill says, the biggest problem I have with this $750 allocation is that you have to register for it online. How the hell do you do this without power, internet, or cell service?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we were listening to a guy that was talking about that. It just doesn't make any sense. How are they going to do that? Everything's been wiped out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Hogs. He's asking what happened to all those FEMA trailers. I don't know. I mean, I'm not over there. I don't really know exactly what you're talking about, but I can speak to what I see from here and their response. And I know that it can be better based on what I've seen happen here. Yeah, it's just a tragedy, man. Bear Independent called it a media blackout. You're not hearing it at all. Yeah, there's a lot of things that the media isn't talking about, and there's a reason why, because there's an election coming. Just imagine for a moment if Trump was in the White House right now. Do you think that the fucking MSNBC guys would be up there in South Carolina or North Carolina, trying to get the scoop? They don't care nothing about that. When I was at the gym, that was the biggest story going on, but they weren't talking about that. They were talking about some bullshit about Trump. That's their only payday. That's their only thing that they can go with. And, there are retards that sit there and listen to that as if it's news. I got to ask, what's wrong with them? Mm-hmm. Those must be some sick people. That's the way I look at it. But, Yeah. Skane says, totally agree. It's horrific to watch somebody else lose everything they have. I had to watch my daughter go through that with a Hurricane Ida. Yeah, Mother Nature is going to do what she do. And, you know, I feel bad for the people that were doing their jobs, you know, the people that are actually up there doing heroic things. I didn't mean to say doing their job. I just meant this, the average citizens that have been up there helping their neighbors. You know, people are going to step up. They're going to put themselves in harm's way to help other people because that's what good people do. And I know that's happening. And then the feds show up and they say, oh, no, you can't do that. You need to do this, or you need to do that, or you need to stay out of the area, or you need, and that's a real problem. That's an absolute real problem because you're hindering people's ability to help their neighbor. And that's just not going to set well with a lot of people. And I guess I asked Rebecca this earlier, but it's almost like we are being prodded again to like, at what point is somebody going to snap?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just saw your town get wiped out. You've got people coming in telling you can't do this or whatever, and they're the authorities, and then they're not doing shit. You were rescuing people with your private helicopter for 3 days before anybody showed up. Now they've told you to ground your helicopter, and they've got helicopters sitting on the ground that ain't doing shit. I mean, that's not the right thing to be happening right now. You know, I can remember, and this is like it's not interagency, but it's CAL FIRE versus the Forest Service. Not really versus, it's just how things work. But we got dispatched in 1987. There was a lightning storm that came through and touched off a couple thousand fires in the Northern California area. I mean, just hammered. We were sitting there on the base one night, and I was just like, wow, this is a cool show. And then the next day we got dispatched. We got an early up, meaning you need to get your shit ready before you normally go on. We normally go on about 9:30, 10 with the helicopter, but they called us early and said, you got an early up. So you need to get your shit all checked out and everything, and you're going to be flying by like 9. And so we lifted off from the base, turned the corner, nothing but smokes everywhere. We were just like, holy smokes, I'm 19 years old. And so we fly up to where we were going, and we spent the first day just landing and fighting fire, just me and my crew. And we were just getting out, putting scratch line around these fires, and then we'd load back up in the helicopter and go do another one. And we're just making it happen. We're doing shit, right? That's what we were there to do. And then the very next day, the feds come in and they set up a helibase, which needs to happen. The helibase needs to be, it's basically an incident for the air assets, and all of the operations are going to be run from the standpoint of the rotary wing aircraft are going to be run out of this helibase. So logistically, they're going to be supported, and operationally, they'll be supported all out of this base. And we run this airstrip. And so we were the only helicopter up there because everything else was committed elsewhere. And the fucking guy comes in and he says, okay, you're going to be here at the base. You're going to be at the helibase. We want you here because we need to have you flying the operations. We need your helicopter to fly, the operations people out to view the area or whatever. And we're just sitting there the whole day. And we sat there for the next 2 weeks doing load calculations. That was our assignment. We went from fighting fire, actually making a difference, to being, in the helibase, doing load calculations for fucking sling loads and crew shuttles. And they took our initial attack helicopter and put us there. And meanwhile, the fires are just like raging, getting bigger, right? And they're doing their thing. The feds are kind of taking their time and setting things up and doing it by the book, pulling out their slide rules and shit. And that's not how our operation operates. They have a different mission. They're fighting in the federal lands. We're fighting private lands. And so we can't just let people's shit burn up. We have to go in and put it out aggressively. They are managing the forest, and fire is good in the forest ecosystem, which it actually is. So there's not the urgency. But when you have thousands of fires burning, right, eventually that's going to get out of hand. And in 1987 in California, it was a wild fucking ride. I actually did a helicopter rescue that landed us. I was on the crew that won or was nominated for the Helicopter Heroism Award for 1987, and it flew us all expense paid back to Boston. She wasn't even my fiance at the time; she was just my girlfriend. I told them, yeah, we're married.
That way, they would pay for me to go, right?
So yeah.
keep that in mind. That they printed that in the newspaper, and you imagine what his parents read that.
That's right. Yeah. So she flew back. It was badass though, man. We flew back to Boston and they took us to Cheers.
They about fell out. Yeah. I don't even think they knew about me yet, let alone him getting married.
Yeah. We did that rescue that was badass. And, but anyhow, that's just the bureaucracy, how it works, man. And it's frustrating even for somebody who's had worked in a bureaucracy. So I'm just trying to lend some perspective to people who are on the outside saying, oh, things are all fucked up. Well, yeah, they are. And they don't really need to be, but there's a reason why they're fucked up. And that's why I'm trying to kind of like explain that in a way that might make some form of, some cohesive sense. But yeah, good times. Anywho, let's see here. Dean says, my question is how power and utility companies can converge on a disaster area in a coordinated fashion. How power and utility companies how they converge. I'll tell you what, here in California, they know their systems better than us. Everything that PG&E has is in a computer system. They know where everything is, and all of their vehicles have all of that information. PG&E, well, there's actually a multi-state agreement that, like when things happen of a large scale, you'll get utility companies coming from like back east or whatever. If they don't have a problem, they'll send resources from other areas of the country to mobilize and come out where there's actually work needed. They have a pretty good coordinated system as well. PG&E, I know, has their shit together. They've got a lot of money and they've had to learn, what to do and how to do it. And they're good at it, but there's actually an entire system that's set up from the standpoint of like national response and providing mutual aid and automatic aid and things like that. So it's pretty impressive, man. I'll be quite honest. They're actually in there, PG&E, restringing lines and shit while the fire's still burning. They get with it, man. They catch a lot of hell because their systems start fires from time to time, but those guys work hard and they're good at what they do. They're very well practiced here in California in integrating into the wildfire, disaster response. And that goes across the board. When there's earthquakes here in California, a major thing, ain't fucking calling nobody but Cal Fire to come in and manage that, right? The fire guys. It's because that's what we do. When they have floods, it's what we do. And when they have like, we've managed things like they had a bird flu outbreak a couple of times, and you have to go in and kill a bunch of chickens. Guess who they call to manage that? So I know it could be done out there on the East Coast. Given ample opportunity, the teams would be mobilized and it would be broken into zones and it would be coordinated and it would be efficient. But again, that's not happening at the federal level. And you're probably never going to see that because again, there's not the willingness and there's not the level of proficiency because they don't get to flex their muscle in the theater of operations very often. When they do, it's an entirely new group of people that are learning on the job. They'll figure it out here in a couple of weeks. Maybe a month or two, they'll start to hit their stride, but that's not going to help the people that are up there right now, looking for help. Let's see. It did. They got out of their FEMA trailer a couple months ago, moved the whole family into a camper trailer that they could move in case of future hurricanes. Let's see here. Got a bunch of comments, I guess. You gonna help me with them comments, I guess. What's up, Lucy? I see you're in the house from Ontario, Canada. Good to see you this evening.
Hello.
I was just giving my thoughts on the ill-fated response from the federal government and trying to provide a little bit of perspective on that. But, one of the real problems, I think, is the fact that they have redirected funds. And then, of course, as I said earlier, they could easily find the money. They don't have any problem finding the money when they want to send it to one of their pet projects or whatever. They'll come up with a way to print some money and shift some funds around. So yes, they've spent money that was assigned to the Federal Emergency Management Agency and used that for illegal aliens, despite the fact that they've tried to say that they haven't done that. And this guy has a take on that I thought I'd play just to kind of give some context.
Ever seen. The reason why those Americans in North Carolina, those mothers, those fathers, those precious little children were left to die, were left on rooftops begging their government for help that never came, is because Kamala Harris turned FEMA into an illegal alien resettlement agency. Its manpower, its dollars, its resources, its mental energy was spent over the last 4 years learning how to do one thing, how to get illegal aliens from outside the country into your town. And so when disaster struck, they were not ready, they were not prepared, they were not capable, and they did not care. And our fellow citizens, including babies, children, young kids, were left to suffer and drown. They did not scramble the helicopters. They did not scramble the military. They did not send needed assistance. But if those children had been living in a foreign country, they've been living in Haiti, or they've been living in Venezuela, why then Kamala Harris would have sent in help immediately. A betrayal like we've never seen before, Sean. This is infuriating.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree with him.
Yeah.
It's extremely infuriating.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will share that sentiment. I'm very well removed from it. I don't know anybody that's being affected, but I feel for those people. I feel for them deeply because I know, what it's like to lose things, and obviously not in that way. So it's just, definitely something that I can see the people that do share that, or have that kind of passion where it's coming from, because there's no excuse for it. Yeah, some have said that it's like a federal land grab. I don't know, man. I'm not going to go down that road yet to, jump on that. I mean, that could be, or it could not be. I don't know. But
that's interesting, because that's a thought that I had earlier. I didn't really share it with you, but the reason why they wouldn't run in is that's something they can just snatch right up.
What do you mean?
At least if I'm understanding.
Well, they said that about Maui too, I guess. And whether that is the reason why they did that, I think a lot of what you're seeing is just, again, it's incompetence. These people, half of them don't know what the fuck they're doing. There's people that know what they're doing in there. But as with anything with government, you have a lot of people who are good folks that are driving the car. And then you've got a lot of people that are just being protected by the union, and they know somebody or whatever, and they're just in this position. They might be good at something else, but now they're in this position that they really don't know a lot about, and they're learning on the job. And so you've got a lot of people that are being carried instead of having everybody kind of know what their role is. To your point, Dean, man, that fucking fly is gonna go, man. I think Dean said something here that says the area of devastation is so huge No one really knows what to do. Emergency needs are going to take months, rebuilding in years. I would agree with all of that, except the fact that you said nobody really knows what to do. There's plenty of people that know what to do. Like I said, CAL FIRE, if it was tasked with that, would have a much different response than what you're seeing right now, right? And I'm not saying that they would be able to come in with their teams and utilize all of the things that they have underneath their organizational structure, but they would know how to acquire the things that are necessary in order for that to move in a much more expeditious and a way that the public had some level of confidence that, hey, these people know what the fuck they're doing. You know, so that would be something outside of what CAL FIRE is used to doing, but in a sense, not really, because the incidents are all very well scalable, right? You know, you start with an IC and everything is built underneath that, and you just keep adding the people within a certain span of control, keeping the you know, the amount of people that you have working underneath you, not outside of something that isn't manageable. It's called span of control. And it would totally, it's just, whether it's killing chickens or whether it's dealing with an earthquake or a flood or whatever, it would all be broken up into zones, man. And it would be going back into that central command. And it could easily be done. I'm not saying easily, but I'm saying what you would find is you would find a much greater level of proficiency. But yes, it's going to take years for that to be rebuilt. There's still empty lots in Paradise. There's still empty lots in Redding where we had fires from 5 years ago, where people have just decided, hey, I'm not rebuilding here. We're going to just fucking leave and go somewhere else. And you're going to see that in these communities. You're going to see businesses. Some people will be enthusiastic about coming back. And, you know, hey, this is our community and shit. And there's going to be a lot of support early on. You know, hey, we're Paradise strong. We're Redding strong. You're going to start seeing signs like that, right? Hashtag, you know, what's the town that's like whatever over there, whatever their town is strong. And you're going to see people just trying to, you know, build themselves up from the ashes or the mud, so to speak. But then pretty soon something else will happen and you'll stop hearing about that and they'll be kind of on their own. And there'll be another story that'll come up and there'll be some other crisis that'll take precedent. And so, yes, it's going to be a long road for these people to try to put their lives back in some semblance of order. And again, I really feel for them because, you know, once the TV cameras go and Glenn Beck isn't fucking showing up anymore and Dr. Phil and all these other fucking people that have an interest up in there right now, guess who's going to be there? It's going to be them staring at each other like, what the hell? What are we doing here? You know, let's try to put our lives back together. It's going to be tough, man. It's absolutely going to be like, like nothing they've had to experience. Yeah, let's see here. What, did we burn something up? Just like a controlled burn by CDF on a windy day, and it got out of control and burned a few hundred residents, et cetera. You remember? Let's see. Which one are you referring to? Because that shit has happened. That has happened. I've been on fires, not really from our agency as much as I've been on some that have been started from the feds, both BLM and U.S. Forest Service. But cite me the specific example of that. And I'm not saying it didn't occur because I fully believe it probably has. But yeah, bad calls are made in those VMPs, Vegetative Management Program burns that are out there. Jones Valley. Oh, you're right. I do remember that. Yes. Yeah, they burn up a lot of shit up in Jones Valley. That was a ripper, man. They burn up a couple hundred homes. So you're right. I do remember that. Wasn't that arson? I thought that was arson, man, from some volunteer or something, or was that a controlled burn? I can't remember, but that was a ripper. Can I grow wheat organically? Yeah, I don't see why not. Why would you not be able to grow wheat organically? Yeah, it's more infuriating than embarrassing. too many chiefs, not enough Indians. There's a lot of that going on. But when you get an organizational structure put into place, that's the good thing about it. Your title, you might be somebody who's lesser in rank than the person that you're commanding if you're in the position of superiority, right? I could have, let's say I'm the branch director, and well, when I was a branch director, I was like assistant chief or whatever. But like when I was lesser down, I mean, I commanded people who were chiefs, right? Telling them what to do when I'm like an engineer. I'm like a fire apparatus engineer, and this is what I'm giving directives. And there's no question about rank. Oh, well, you're above me or below me. No, you're given that authority in that position. And so, but there is a lot of chiefs and not enough Indians. And that's what you have happen when you don't have people assuming control in a reasonable way. When people aren't getting the information that they need, they're going to make assumptions, and then they're going to take independent action. And that's one of the most dangerous things that you can have on the fire ground, is people just assuming this is what's, what I'm supposed to do. You need to be able to give clear instructions and make sure that they are known. That is number 8 of the 10 standard firefighting orders. A lot of people died because people made assumptions. And when you have too many chiefs, not enough Indians, and people with egos out there just taking independent action, it's a fucking problem. And that's what you have right now.
What did Eric Johnson say?
Hey, man, there we go. In the house. Yeah, man. Did you get off that fire yet? Let's see. There's my boy. Says there's no rank in ICS. He knows. He knows. This is true. No control. The commander was not liable because it was a state agency. Yeah, I don't recall the. Yeah, he should have been fucking if that's the case. I do remember the Jones fire, Jones Valley, and that ripped some shit up, man. There was some bad stuff happening on there, and I've been on fires, quite honestly, man, where I've seen professional people acting in a very unprofessional way. And it really, really bothered me, because this is the reason, because people have an assumption that when we're showing up, we're going to do the right thing. And I've seen people act in a way that was not professional and in a way that was kind of cavalier. And I mean, it really affected me, like to the point where I was ready to fight. And this dude was above me as far as rank. I wanted to kick his ass. I damn near did. He was a chief from fucking San Luis, and I was a captain. And yeah, the shit he was doing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm getting on a rant here. Negative, securing lodges for the fellows. Cool. Well, be safe, and we'll see you when you get off shift. Where was I going with this whole thing? I think that's probably enough, man, on this FEMA deal, because it's kind of like, I can't really interject more into it than I've already done. I was just trying to provide a little perspective as far as how they could have maybe co-opted people a little bit better and then been better in the information flow, because I think that would have made people much happier in, even mistakes that were made, they'd be much happier knowing kind of the direction of things, despite the fact that they've made countless mistakes. And so, we last heard that guy getting pretty pissed off about the FEMA dollars. And I know that, the administration has tried to distance themselves from the fact that they actually have provided funds from FEMA. They've diverted funds from FEMA to illegal migrants, illegal aliens. And so here's a short little clip of this press secretary who is denying it on one hand, but then acknowledging it on another.
No, Biden did not take FEMA relief money to use on migrants. So FEMA regional administrators have been meeting with city officials on site to coordinate available federal support from FEMA and other federal agencies. Funding is also available through FEMA's emergency food and shelter program to eligible local governments and non-for-profit organizations upon request to support humanitarian relief for migrants.
So I don't know. It's pretty hard to be, a really effective press secretary when you're constantly contradicting yourself, and that's one of the dangerous things about the I guess speaking on camera. People can pull shit up from what you've said in the past. So I guess I'm kind of hanging myself out here by saying that, because I've said a lot of things on this channel that might be considered harmful and people might want to bring up, but I kind of wish they would, because I like to talk to people. So talk to me.
That logo right there that you just pulled up?
Loco, man, what's up? Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. How are you?
Does that not remind you of nobody?
Yeah, it does. It does. It reminds me of this dude that was hiking just ahead of us on the Pacific Crest Trail, and he had these little, let me put that little thing up again. And he was hiking just ahead of us, and he had these little wooden chits that looked like a little poker chip, and it had a picture of this little dude that was just like the Locos thing.
It looks just like that.
Right. Yeah. And so it was kind of cool. And then he put his date and time that he was like, and he'd put him in these random obscure places, and we would just pass by and we'd be like, hey, where's one of those things again?
But his trail name was Nobody.
That's right.
So it would say nobody was here.
Right. Yeah. The one you're thinking of was the Fawn Fire. This was a different one. Yeah. There's been a number of like controlled burn escapes that have kind of like went wrong and stuff. And, when that happens, it's pretty not okay, especially if there's like homes that have been lost. I don't know of anything recently or whatever, but it happens. It happens. There should be some form of punishment for that, I guess, right?
It should be.
You would think. But nonetheless.
So you've had a lot of experience though, working with CAL FIRE and being in that environment to have an idea as to how the chain of command work and how it's organized. I mean, I couldn't add anything to that conversation. I guess I'm saying is you've had that experience.
Sure.
I've never actually worked.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's I guess enough of the FEMA stuff. I did, I asked, I think I could kind of close things out like this, and because I had asked ChatGPT, I said, what is the most concerning story of the United States today? And what it said was basically like social division, right? Political division, I think political divisiveness, something to that effect. And so then I asked it further. I said, what is the root cause of the most concerning news story of the day? And it came up with this. It said, beliefs and contributing to the echo chamber effect. Social media influence. Platforms like Facebook and Twitter can amplify divisive content, spreading misinformation and fostering conflict. Another was economic inequality. Disparities in wealth and income can lead to frustration and resentment, which can be exploited by political figures to gain support. Suppose that's true. Cultural and demographic changes. Rapid changes in demographics and cultural norms can create a sense of uncertainty and fear among certain groups, leading to increased polarization. I wonder how that's happening with an open border. Is there anything related to that? Political strategies was another, and it says some politicians use divisive rhetoric and tactics to mobilize their base, further deepening the divide. All of those are quite true, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what ChatGPT seemed to think was the most concerning news story, is political division. And asking it what the root cause was, that's what it came up with. And I think that's pretty spot on. But I don't know. What do you think we do from there? How do we?
What we were talking about earlier is that I think that our government needs to be more concerned with our citizens here and taking care of our welfare and not worrying about so much what's going on overseas. We've got our own set of problems that need to be dealt with, and that should be the top of the list.
It should be, but it's clearly not. And so, again, I think, at some point, people are going to get fed up with it. And unfortunately, when that happens, there's going to be a response from the people that are provoking the people into that response, right? If you keep poking people, eventually people get kind of upset about it and pissed off. And whether it's a lack of attentiveness to their own citizens, as is being done now in this hurricane and its debacle of an aftermath, or calling people things that they're not repeatedly, or giving them the impression that their vote doesn't count because of things that they've done overtly that you were able to witness. There's a myriad of different things that I think people are going to be getting fed up with. And I think when that becomes to be like something of a tipping point, there's going to be a response, and then there's going to be a counter response. And I just hope that people, do
You're prepared. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah. Just do what you can do to make sure you're, bringing yourself closer to your own priorities, with regard to your preparedness. And that's really the overarching message that I would leave people with. I don't think that people need to get to the point. I mean, you get whatever point you want to, because, when your back's against the wall, you got nothing else, what do you have to lose type of a mentality. And I think there's probably some people that are maybe contemplating that, where they think, hey man, I've lost everything. What the fuck else something's going to happen. And so I think there's an element of the people behind the scenes actually trying to create a situation where that's going to happen with people. They want another January 6th. They want another thing that they can trot out and say, look at all these people here. They're the problem. We need to do this in response to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want people to, just consider that and try to be the good people that you are. Because I mean, you see it every day, man, with people out there trying to help their fellow neighbor. And then you got people coming in and telling you, no, you can't do that. That's very frustrating. And again, they've missed the mark with regarding to, co-opting people's volunteerism. So, yeah, I think we're going to probably wind it up here, guys, tonight. Been on here for quite some time, but I did want to just leave you with this. Did you know? I thought there were some interesting things here, so check it out.
Still used today and where they originated from. In World War I, soldiers had to climb out over the top of the trenches to charge at the enemy, which was an extremely dangerous move known as going over the top. That's why now doing something excessive is considered over the top. In the 19th century, young boys in America who wanted to start a fight would place a small wooden chip on their shoulder, daring others to knock it off. If someone went ahead and knocked it off, it was considered an invite to fight. This is why we say someone who is looking for confrontation has a chip on their shoulder. In medieval England, scot was a slang word for tax, and if you avoided paying tax, you got away scot-free. That's why escaping without punishment is now called getting off scot-free. Also in medieval England, bakers were required by law to sell a full dozen loaves of bread to avoid punishment for short-changing customers. They would add an extra loaf. This is why today a baker's dozen means 13. In the 18th century, a famous playwright invented a thunder sound effect for his plays. This sound was copied by another production team, and this later led to the phrase, steal someone's thunder.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate you guys showing up tonight and hanging out with us for a couple hours while we sit here and share some perspective and some thoughts. And as always, you can catch the rebroadcast not only here on YouTube, hopefully without commercials like I did last week, but you can jump on over to Spotify if you're just listening to the audio version, because I'll be uploading it there. And I hope you guys all have a great week. We are looking to do the same, but we've still got a few things here around the homestead just to button up on. I got some sheep to feed, and she's got meat.
Got some chickens that didn't want to go up, but do need to go up.
Yeah, we'll give them another shot. If they don't, they can stay out tonight and take their medicine if the raccoon comes in. So
they can be bait.
Anyhow, good night, Scanes and Bill Zegley and Hogs. Thanks for sticking with us tonight and hanging out. As always, appreciate you guys. And we'll see you next week, huh?
Yeah. Good night, all.
Right on.